I'm missing something. Okay, so it's live streaming. And you started recording, but not as yet.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I'm going to start the webinar right now. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I would like to thank you very much for taking the time to attend the CariSec Global and BCSI Cybersecurity Event 2023 virtual conference, where we discuss and impart knowledge on cyber risk, cybersecurity, and cyber resilience to senior government officials, business leaders, owners, boards, etc. The private and public sector continues to face increasing threats every minute of the day, factually, putting the organization, governance, people, process, and technology at risk due to the cyber attacks, and in some cases, affecting operations, availability, threats to data sovereignty, security, and integrity, and breaches, causing legal ramifications both on the side of client and business due to data protection compliances. In fact, compliance risks will play a greater role at the table of risk due to the ever-increasing organization compliance. Cyber risk is one of the world's top 10 risks, and this risk continues to grow due to inadequate understanding and awareness. And I therefore hope that this conference will help you to appreciate this risk, allowing you to strategize risk programs in managing risk. We therefore have included distinguished featured guests, speakers like Mr. Rodney Taylor, the Secretary General, CARICOM, Caribbean Telecommunication Union, CTU, Mr. Mario Brooks. He's speaking on behalf of the United States Virgin Islands Commissioner of Police, Mayor Martinez, who is currently traveling, providing opening remarks from the Association of the Caribbean Commissioner of Police. And we are hoping that he will be able to join us this morning. We also have the 2018 Global CISO of the Year, Mr. Stefan Napo. He's the Vice President and Cybersecurity Director and Global Chief Information Security Officer of Group SEB. And we also have Mr. Scott Froh, Managing Director of Phenomic Nati. These are the industry leaders to communicate on risks, thereby allowing you to bring about a new culture of security, providing business viability and resilience. On that note, please enjoy the future sessions, taking away as many notes as you can, and we look forward to communicating with you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Edward. I just want to say a very good welcome to all of you who are joining us this morning for this session. As Edward said, it is a session that is packed with a whole lot of knowledge that would be imparted by a number of very experienced and highly qualified persons sharing of their experience in the whole field of cybersecurity. As we said this morning session, you would have joined, and I want to really take the time out to welcome you and to really thank you for making the effort. I know many of you are very busy in terms of your activities, and I just want to thank you for joining us this morning for these sessions. I hope that over the next 2 days, for those of you who will be staying with us for the duration of the next 2 days, that these sessions will prove to be very informative and enlightening as we go through the course and the content that is available to us, and the knowledge that will be shared and the experiences that will be shared by our presenters on the various subjects. My name is Charles Walton, and as I said, a very good welcome, and I look forward to being your moderator in this particular unique event. And we'll prepare for the next session. And of course, if there are any questions that you may have, you can feel free to pose your questions, and we will be able to post those questions to the panelists. Of course, for each presentation, there will be appropriate times of question and answers, and you can post those questions in the chat. We may get to some, maybe not all of them, but we try to cover as much of them as possible so that your questions can be answered as we go through the sessions. So I see there are quite a number of you join us. And again, for those of you who have just arrived, we want to say welcome and thank you for joining us in this morning's session. You would have heard from Edward Millington, who's the Managing Director of CariSec and CariSec Global, and he would have shared in terms of his opening remarks what he hopes this session can bring to you as we go through the couple of sessions over today and tomorrow. I am quite eager. We've got, as I said before, quite a lineup of experienced professionals, and we're hoping that they will be able to impart their knowledge, and you can go away being a little bit wiser, being a little bit more knowledgeable about this whole question of cybersecurity, how it relates to cyber risk. The whole theme of the conference is cyber risk, reducing cyber risk through cyber resilience. And we hope that at the end of it, that we will impart the knowledge to help you to become a lot more cyber resilient as you face those cyber risks that are out there. So we're preparing for our next session, which will feature a number of speakers as they give their opening remarks, and these will be featured guests. And we have persons like Michelle Smith-Mears, who is the Executive Director of the Barbados Conference Coalition of Service Industries. As well, we've got persons like Rodney Taylor as well, the Secretary General of the CTU. As Edward said earlier, we've got a representative from the USVI Police Force as well. So those persons will be sharing some remarks this morning as they go through the session. So we're preparing for the next session, and it's 7 minutes after 9. Again, thank you and welcome as we prepare to go into the other session this morning. So we're looking forward to seeing you on that session in the next couple of seconds. So welcome once again, and we look forward to seeing you on that session shortly. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who are joining us on this session on the Cybersecurity Conference 2023, where the theme is reducing cyber risk through cyber resilience. We are in this session this morning, we're looking at our featured guests as they deliver the opening remarks for this session. And we have first up, Mrs. Michelle Smith-Mears. She's the Executive Director of the Barbados Coalition of Service Industries. And Michelle is a business and marketing consultant developing niche markets and product development analysis. She's a university lecturer by experience. She also has extensive business management, corporate communications, tourism sector planning, and development experience. She's also very experienced in terms of culinary product development and sectoral linkages management. She's an acclaimed event consultant and management expert. So without further ado, we welcome to deliver the feature remarks, Mrs. Michelle Smith-Mears.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Michelle. Go right ahead.
Good morning. I want to say a special thank you to all of the presenters and the participants who joined us today. BCSI is pleased to collaborate with CariSec Global to host this two-day virtual conference to explore the topic of reducing cyber risks through cyber resilience. When Mr. Millington first discussed the idea with us, the topic was very timely, and we saw this as an opportunity to further build on the discussion of data security, which we had started for our membership last year. The fact that, particularly in the Barbados context, the topic is even more relevant than it was when we started planning a few weeks ago is purely coincidental. BCSI firmly believes that digital business is important to the development of export markets in the services sector, and also on the domestic and the global scale. The silver lining of the COVID pandemic would have been the acceleration of this new normal, and there's no going back from that. However, issues of data management, access, and protection make cybersecurity one of the most important considerations for any business today, regardless of size. Cyber criminals are in the business of constantly developing new ways to attack business, and often the consequences can be devastating. The best way to mitigate risk of cyber attacks is to educate yourself about cyber risk and how to avoid them. The new normal is not business as usual. We cannot be under the disillusionment that we can stay in our comfort zone, relegate cyber protection to our tech support without knowing how to retool the way we operate our businesses to protect against cyber attacks. This today's session is the start of your journey, my journey as well, to learning more about this. And if you are like me, cyber challenged, some of this may go over your head. You will definitely learn with this virtual conference more than you know right now. I wish you a productive and enlightening 2 days as you are exposed to some of the top minds in cybersecurity and mitigation of cyber risks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michelle, for your opening remarks. And we move to the next speaker is Mr. Rodney Taylor. He's the Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. Rodney is very experienced, but without much ado, I will just let Rodney get right into his presentation. Rodney, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Charles, and good morning to all the participants and to CariSec Global. Thank you for the opportunity to just speak very briefly. And I just thought I would share a few slides and make those slides available as well to participants for future reference. So as Charles pointed out, I'm Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, and therefore I just wanted to give a regional context for the discussion on cybersecurity at the CARICOM level, which of course Barbados and other members of the Caribbean, other Caribbean countries are members of. We have the Council for National Security and Law Enforcement. So all of the ministers with responsibility for security sit on this council, and they have oversight for traditional security issues such as illegal drugs, guns, human trafficking, and so on. Of course, cybersecurity is increasing in its importance given the heavy reliance on technology by governments and by the private sector as well. At the institutional level, we have CARICOM Impact, the implementation agency for crime and security, because also the heads of government understood that security is considered the fourth pillar of CARICOM, and the other pillars are listed there for your information. The CTU is also another regional institution with responsibility for information and communication technology, and we promote the use of technology in government services and also the private sector. Again, as governments become more reliant on these technologies, they're open to greater risk. So CARICOM has also developed through impacts and with the CTU support and the Organization of American States, developed a regional cybersecurity action plan. It has not yet been fully implemented, but just for information, it is there, and I've provided links to that at the end of this presentation. With the support of the Organization of American States, also through the Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism, the OAS and the ITU also support member states in the development of national strategies. That's important because it's a national strategy for cybersecurity will address also the private sector and what they can do, what strategies can help build cyber resilience in the private sector. And we have Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, the Bahamas, and Grenada, among others, that have already developed strategies. In some cases, they haven't been implemented, unfortunately, but those strategies do exist. At the legislative level, we are also working with the ITU. We have done a project in the past called HIPCAR that focused on developing legislation around cybercrime and cybersecurity, privacy and data protection, interception of communications, lawful interception of communications. And those pieces of legislation are important to set the framework nationally, because if something is not a crime by law, effectively persons can carry out their activities without fear of any sort of action. And I'm sure many of these issues will be covered over the next 2 days, today and tomorrow. But businesses are becoming increasingly reliant on technology, as Michelle pointed out, and connectivity, and that connectivity is heightening the cyber risk. And therefore, it's important for businesses to develop strong cyber resilience to safeguard themselves against these threats. There are reputational issues beyond financial losses. There are reputational risk as well to the organization in case of a breach and if there's a loss of customer data. But there are many challenges that businesses face, the ever-evolving threats, the sophistication of the threats, the fact that there are state actors involved as well, not just teenagers in a basement, but this thing has grown in sophistication. There's a huge global business around cybersecurity and ransomware. So there's a lot of money to be made, and hence criminals are working around the clock. Expertise is something that is also very, very critical. Businesses, especially small businesses, don't have the resources to hire security experts, let alone, IT staff, let alone cybersecurity experts, which is a different level of expertise. And therefore, that is something that they may just implement systems, but don't necessarily have the time and resources to think about security until there is a breach. And of course, lack of awareness and education. And that's why we are happy to be a part of this session this morning, because this is about building awareness. These are some of the things you can do. Again, I'm sure these will be covered, but certainly as a small business, there are skills, there are small companies specializing in cybersecurity and helping you to develop the resilience. And as a small business, you would certainly want to engage with them for the reasons I mentioned before, because you don't have the resources. We're here as well as an organization to help at the national level and also to support private sector organizations as best as we can in helping to build awareness and to develop strategies. Here's just a few links that I mentioned. Our website, the HIPCAR project, the Organization of American States, and the CARICOM impacts. That's a link to the Cybercrime Action Plan. Thanks again, CariSec, and all the participants for the invitation, and I wish you an enjoyable 2 days of discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rodney. Quite a bit covered in your opening remarks and really setting the tone for what the conference will cover over the next couple of days. Really thank you for taking the time to share with us. Next, we have Mario Brooks. He's the Assistant Commissioner of Police of the United States Virgin Islands Police Department. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Lieutenant Brooks. He's an experienced veteran of just under 30 years who has worked in various sections, including the Special Operations and Criminal Intelligence Bureaus. He comes with 27 years of military experience and holds the rank of Major in the Virgin Islands National Guard. His current position is Deputy Inspector General, and he has served as the commander of the Military Police Department. He also holds a bachelor's degree in psychology, as well as a master's in business and organizational security management. So here this morning to speak to us from the United States Virgin Islands Police Department is Lieutenant Mario Brooks.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, I am Assistant Commissioner Sidney Olsko. I saw Mario Brooks's caption on there, and I was wondering, why are we both attending the same conference? He is actually not here today, and I am sitting in his place. I'm also representing Police Commissioner Ray Martinez, and he sends his regards. Again, I'm proud to be here today representing the United States Virgin Islands Police Department. As we all know, education and training never ends, especially when we hope for the best from our personnel. And we hope to provide stellar service to the communities we protect. Bad actors will continue to seek backdoors and other opportunities to manipulate computer systems. This event will help us all mitigate that ever-present risk. I'm not aware of a single agency that does not use computer-based technology. Factors such as ignorance, carelessness, or downright apathy will always be exploited by those with criminal intent to gain access to our #1 asset, which is information. We can never take it for granted that our colleagues or direct reports recognize what an attack even looks like. I recall an employee of mine come into my office laughing about his computer cursor moving around the screen very hurriedly, opening and closing files without his input. And he did not realize that this was an attack. Of course, I ran over and yanked the cord out of the wall to stop it. But this is one example of what could happen. And as Bob Marley said, he who feels it knows it. And we can all acknowledge that experience is the best teacher. In 2019, the U.S. Virgin Islands Police Department was hit with a ransomware attack that we're still recovering from. Not only did it create a financial burden for us, but it crippled our record system to a point where we could not completely fulfill the responsibilities of our consent decree, which we are currently operating under. It goes without saying that we will do everything we can to prevent a reoccurrence of that event. Again, we are happy to be here and look forward to taking part in this film. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your timely remarks. Quite interesting that you mentioned you were the victim or you were involved in an event, what we call a cyber risk event. And you mentioned the whole fact that your employee did not even recognize that, which ties in very beautifully to one of the things that Rodney mentioned in his speech, the fact that employees can be unaware of what an attack looks like, which is a very critical part, and that in itself is a risk. And we'll cover those as we go into one of the sessions this morning on cyber risk for business leaders. So I want to thank you very much for sharing your experience, and your kind remarks with us this morning. And we look forward, of course, to speaking to you again at some point in time. So next we have Mr. Steve Bear. He's the field CTO of TrustWave. This is a company, and Mr. Bear will share, just like the others, his opening remarks. So Steve, you can go right ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. Can you guys hear me okay? It doesn't seem like I'm allowed to use my video at the moment.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
All right, excellent. Excellent. So thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here, although remotely, because it's about 34 degrees here in Chicago, and I would love to be there in person. Unfortunately, I cannot. But all jokes aside, TrustWave is a global pure play security provider, and so in that perspective, and some of the things that we bring to you guys as well is that a richness of experience for organizations that do have firsthand experience with a cyber event. So said differently, we investigate about 2,000 breaches a year, sometimes more, sometimes less, but on average about 2,000 breaches. And through that, we'll bring a lot of color and commentary of the who and the what and the how of cybercrime. And what's very important for organizations today is to understand that they might not have financial related data. They might not have what we call personally identifiable information, but they do represent a very unique target space or target package to the cyber criminal, right? So for example, infrastructure. Right? Infrastructure, you know, for the cyber criminal element, they just want to own your environment. They want to use it to their advantage. They want to perhaps house an illegal storefront, right? Or use it to store illegal content, right? Or inappropriate content, right? As they sell that and move that through the cyber underground, right? Or they use your infrastructure to attack someone else, right? So bandwidth, right? And the ability to have access, high speed access to the internet represents a fire hose or the cannon to do other bad things to other organizations. So we see it all through our threat research groups and our breach investigations, our managed detection and response capabilities. We're able to bring a very eclectic mix of the cyber underground so that our clients can benefit from that. And so that includes clients that use things like digital forensics and incident response services from us, as well as managed services. So it's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to being on the panel and helping wherever I can. Please ask me whatever questions you'd like. But thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Steve. We look forward to discussing some more with you. In fact, you will be featured in the very next session, Cyber Risk for Business Leaders. And of course, you'll be able to expound some more on your experience and share some more of your knowledge with us this morning. I just want to, before we move to the next session, we're just a little bit ahead. I just want to remind persons that we are going session by session, and therefore you need to click on the next session to join in that session. So the next session coming up will be the Reducing Cyber Risk Through Cyber Resilience. And as we end this one off in the next couple of minutes, then we'll ask you to join us in that particular session as we go through to look at the whole question of cyber risk for business leaders. What are some of the things that business leaders need to understand about cyber risk? What may be their threats that their business will be facing, not only their business, but to give a little bit more knowledge of what are some of the global cyber threats, whether or not your business will be at risk. How do you integrate your cyber and IT risk into your overall corporate risk management program? And of course, we'll want to provide some guidance to help you understand the importance of your cybersecurity programs in mitigating your cyber risk. And also, because this session is pitched for those persons who are decision makers, there are a number of things that the persons who are at the C-suite level, as well as those members of the board of directors, there's some things that you need to be able to understand about cybersecurity risks in terms of the key performance indicators. Those type of things will be discussed in the next session on cyber risk for business leaders. So I want to invite you to stay around, join us in the next session as we discuss those topics. But before we go on to that next session, I want to thank our featured guest this morning, the representative from the USVI Police Department, Mr. Rodney Taylor, Mrs. Michelle Smith-Mears, and Steve Bear, who joined us this morning to deliver the featured remarks on this session of Cybersecurity 2023, hosted by CariSec Global. We'll hear a little bit more as we go down through the sessions. I'll tell you a little bit more of some of the sponsors who are responsible for bringing this session to you over the next couple of days. And so we'll end this session here and invite you to join us in the next session on cyber risk for business leaders. Again, looking forward to seeing you in the next session.